Hello friends and subscribers, this is Prepper Princess. Before I start my video, I want to say that this video is not about operational security. It's not about gangs after a collapse. It's not about how many bullets you have or how you're going to defend your homestead or your territory. It's not about getting together in groups and fighting the good fight and all that stuff. This is about 90% of the population after some sort of collapse like an EMP will be dead within a few months, more than likely before 6 months. And this is a really scary prospect for a lot of people. And this is just from natural causes. And a lot of people don't understand a lot of the statistics, and it's not really something that they research. So I wanted to throw out a couple of statistics at you, just so that you can do the numbers in your head. Okay, so if there were an EMP, no electricity, no running water, no food delivery trucks, no services available. All right, so that's the world that we're looking at. We all have a feeling that it's going to happen. We don't know when, we don't know how, but with all the stuff going on with North Korea right now, I thought I would just go ahead and throw a couple of numbers out at you. So 90% of the population will be dead within 6 months. Why? This is why. 65% of the U.S. population are elderly. These are people in care facilities, assisted living homes, retirement communities. So 65% of those elderly people who no longer have food coming in, their water's not running, they're obviously too, physically incapacitated to take care of themselves in a manner such as that would require a lot more physical activity. Those people are essentially going to starve to death if their families don't come and get them, or die of dehydration from lack of water. And that, as you guys know, only takes a few days. No water, especially with the elderly, it's not a good thing. Right now, 50 to 70% of the U.S. population takes medical prescription drugs that are life-saving drugs. 50 to 70%. The statistics are all over the place. I found some that were 50, some that were 73, some that were 49, and everything in between. So I'm just going to say right now, between 50 and 70% of the U.S. population take life-saving prescription medications. Okay? 50 to 70%. 7 out of 10 people. 5 out of 10 people. Half of the people you know take some sort of prescription medication. Mental disorders. 1 out of 6 people have a mental disorder. This goes everything from anxiety and depression to bipolar disorder to schizophrenia. Okay? 1 out of 6 people. So 6 people you talk to today, 1 of them's got a mental disorder. Diabetes. 9% of the population has diabetes. 9%. So we're just going to round that up to 10%. 9% equals 10%. It's close. 1 out of 10 people that you know is going to die from not having their insulin injections. Very short period of time. You guys know diabetes leads to those comas and then you can't get out of it. Each year, 340,000 new cases of cancer are diagnosed every year. Every year. That's 5% of the population. So if people aren't going to be getting their treatments for their cancer, they're not going to make it, and they're not going to make it for very long. So, I mean, let's say that you take half of these people, half of the people that I just mentioned. You're already looking at a 75% U.S. population death rate just based on not having those things available. They're not having life-saving medications available. Wiped out. Gone. Okay? And here's something that I like to think of as I call the Idiocracy Factor. These are people who essentially have no common sense and they can't do for themselves. They're completely mentally and physically able, but they just never learned how. 28% of the U.S. population cannot boil water. I find that one hard to believe. They can't boil water. They can't cook. They probably don't even know how to, scramble eggs, which is really sad. So that's almost 1 out of 3 people. Let's say 1 out of 4. 1 out of 4 people don't know how to cook at all. 0. Nothing. They can't even boil water. 20% of the population does not know how to use a can opener. Enough said. So, all these, I don't want to get into what I like to call the Dungeons and Dragons of prepping. I'm not going to make a video on operational security. I find that when I do try to make those videos, I end up just having to delete them. It turns into what reminds me of Dungeons and Dragons during high school, where you'd be sitting in a group of 5 people, and everybody's pretty much just like trying to outdo the other with some magical weapon. And then they get into these long discussions or arguments about how their way is better than the other. And I find that happens a lot in the prepper community. A lot of people aren't really open to new ideas. And unfortunately, a lot of people, I think, have a skewed vision of what will happen during the collapse, where all of these gangs are going to come out and come after you specifically because of all of your stuff. If you're prepping right anyway, nobody's going to know that you have your stuff. And even if martial law were to come into town, if you kept it secret enough, it wouldn't be a problem. But I don't want this to turn into a thing in the comment section where everybody says, well, what happens if this happens, and what happens if that happens? Look, I'm not looking to go into hypothetical scenarios. I'm looking to go into facts. And these are the facts. The majority of the population, approximately 90%, will be dead within 6 months of natural causes. Do what you can with what you've got. Prepper Princess out.